question, which I am going to be posting shortly. For everyone who's just joined in, thank you so much for coming on. We've posted a poll question. If you all can have a look at your screen, to all of those who have started joining in, and let us know, which industry are you most interested in? Which of the following industries from the options given on your screen is something which really interests you? Are you someone who's interested in insurance and finance? Someone who's interested in, let's say, computer systems design? Is education an industry which really intrigues you, interests you? Are you someone who's looking to, let's say, pursue a career in manufacturing, telecommunications, or data processing and hosting? So if you could quickly look at your screens and let me know which of these particular industries is of interest for you. We see quite a few other students who've also started trickling in. Thank you so much once again for joining us. And for those of you who've just come in, we have posted our first poll question for this evening. If all of those who have tuned into the session can let us know which of these industries that is something which is of interest to them, that would be great. As I mentioned earlier, today's session is with the George Washington University School of Business, a very, very interesting and hot topic, which I am going to be speaking a little bit about, but I'm going to keep the poll question is done. I'm going to announce the results shortly. So 23%, 41% of the audience is interested in computer systems and design, closely followed by data processing and hosting and other industries. So thank you so much, everyone, all of you who've answered the poll question. So I'm going to quickly introduce the panel. My name is Sabahat Herzog. I am a senior marketing manager with Seed Global Education. We are a UK headquartered company which facilitates interactions between top international universities and prospective students like yourself, bringing in various different topics at the different masterclasses to help you get an understanding, a taste of the various programs which are offered by these universities, get an understanding of how the faculty is, what is the course curriculum looking like, thereby helping you in making these informed choices about your career, about your study abroad plans. I have with me today Dr. Subhashish Das Gupta. Hello, Dr. Das Gupta. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Before we go on to the topic, a little bit about Dr. Das Gupta. He is the program director of the Master of Science program in Information Systems Technology and an associate professor of information systems in the Information Systems and Technology Management Department at the School of Business, George Washington University. He has published several papers in various journals and has also presented a lot of papers in national, international conferences. He is a certified Scrum Master CSM and an expert in software development, open source software, and cloud application development. Thank you so much for joining us today and for taking out valuable time for this very, very interesting topic about how cloud computing is revolutionizing digital transformation. Along with Dr. Das Gupta, we also have with us Megan. Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for joining us, who is the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions at the George Washington University School of Business. Once Dr. Das Gupta is done with his presentation, we will also be taking some time out and speaking to Megan, who will let us know about the different programs and offering which George Washington University has to offer all of you. So without further ado, over to you, Dr. Das Gupta. I'm sure all of the people who've tuned in are really keen on listening to more from you about this particular topic.
Well, thank you, Sabahat. This is, you can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so why don't we get started? Thank you so much for that kind introduction for both me and for Megan. Let me get started by sharing my screen. Let me go ahead and share it. Okay, can you see my slide deck?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, okay. Okay, so Sabahat actually introduced me, so I will probably skip a detailed introduction of this. So I am the director of the Master of Science in Information Systems Technology program, as well as the chair of the Department of Information Systems and Technology Management. So I'm very happy to be here. I was just going through looking at all the names that showed up of people where they're joining from, and I was thinking that, oh, that's a place I've not visited yet. And there are lots of places like that. It might take me a few years to visit all the places that showed up on that list. So welcome again, and hope you find this interesting. It's a short presentation, but I'm open to questions at the end, and then Sabahat will also give you some other alternatives to asking questions. Okay, so the outline for the presentation. I'm going to give a quick introduction to the topic of cloud computing and digital transformation by talking about what it is, what is cloud computing, what is the history, and some of you are familiar with the history of cloud computing and how we have gotten to the point we are at now. There are different types of clouds, what are the benefits, and the concerns and risks that come with cloud computing. We won't delve into much greater detail of digital transformation at this point, given the time limitations, but I would love to have that conversation if you have any questions. So let's start with an understanding of why is cloud computing important, and it comes from the basic concept of what's called IT infrastructure. So the IT infrastructure is the basic environment in which companies operate their information technology, or information systems are established or used in the company. I can't find the right words for it, but anyway. So what has happened is that this infrastructure that we see, is very similar to the road or transportation infrastructure that we talk about. But every company has an infrastructure where data moves, and systems are used to capture data, analyze data, distribute data. And when it comes to the modern IT infrastructure, that has evolved over time. We will see that there were some that were, at one time, companies had just one large computer, a mainframe computer, and now we have smartphones. So we have come a long way in the last 50, 60 years. So when we talk about IT infrastructure, the basic components of IT infrastructure include the IT components, which are hardware, software, I don't have to explain those to you, networks again, databases, and then IT services. So everything that comes under this umbrella of IT infrastructure include these different components. And each of them is very important, although we sometimes don't look into that. We just say, when I flip a switch, I want my fan to run. I flip a switch and the light comes on. We don't think too much about how did we get to that point? Why does the light come on? That's similar to what has happened to us when it comes to hardware. Hardware, we just don't think too much about it. We think that, I log in, my email should work. There's some hardware somewhere where the email is stored. Now, most of the time, that email is stored in the cloud. You have a Gmail account, the email is not here, but it's stored in the cloud. And maybe, in many cases, it may not be in the location where you are. So if you're in India or in Dubai, your email may not be stored in Dubai or in India. It might be stored somewhere else. And the same thing applies to us as well. So the emphasis more is going to be on the software application side of the IT infrastructure as well. So this is the background of cloud computing. And we have to understand how this infrastructure has changed over a period of time. And if you look at this list, there are so many different hardware, the things that have changed over a period of time in the last 50, 60 years. We started up with what are called standalone mainframes, and organizations used mainframe computers for engineering and accounting function departments. And many of you know that in most organizations, one of the first functions that was automated, within quotes automated, was the accounting function or the payroll function. I apologize. I don't know whether you can hear, but there's some paving going on right behind my home. So you might be hearing some sounds that in the background. That may be the paving sounds of those trucks at the back. Anyway, so then we moved from standalone mainframes. Those were those huge computers that occupied an entire room to other computers such as mainframe and dumb terminals. So we extended that. We had some terminals. Many of you have seen this in movies. I have used them in real life, but these are like, they used to have like monochrome screens with green typing with a black background. Those were the dumb terminals. So we made it had a keyboard, so you could enter something and the computer would respond to it in a batch process, because there were multiple. This was a multi-user computer, multi-user environment in which it worked. Then came standalone personal computers, and that changed the world, because then the processing got decentralized away from this large computer to smaller computers. And the most popular one of this was the IBM PC, and which was its debut was in 1981, and that changed the entire. Everybody wanted a computer. But it started in companies because they were very expensive. Then slowly they moved to homes where people could then afford to buy computers, and they were way too expensive at the time as well. I remember buying my first personal computer for my home, and it was way expensive, and you might have seen the same thing in wherever you are. Then came local area networks with client-server computing, where the idea was it's not a mainframe, but another computer, but you could connect to that computer and use that computer in a local area, rather than, for example, labs. When you have computer labs or a set of computers on a trading floor, in an office, in a brokerage firm. What do? You don't want every computer to be separate and every computer to be maintained separately. You want these computers to be connected to a network, so that if you make changes in one, you probably could broadcast those changes to everywhere you want to. Then came enterprise computing, where companies started looking at a holistic way of managing information systems. And then, I won't get into much more details of that, but then came cloud computing and mobile computing. And that is where companies are a little more comfortable moving their data to the cloud. Now, what is the cloud? It's an environment. It is maybe something that is not in the organization. Sometimes it could be in the organization, but that's the trend, and there are good reasons for it. And we'll be talking about that. So when it comes to the growth of cloud computing, the history is actually tied very closely with the growth of the internet. So it's important to understand the history of the internet. So with that, I'm going to show you a short clip, and then I'll quickly move on to the other things, the other aspects of it. Okay, so it's loading up.
There is no modern world without the internet. Like the Industrial Revolution before it, the internet and the information age it sparked has created a seismic shift that completely changed how we live and communicate, do business, shop, entertain ourselves, and even explore the universe. Though it has become completely ubiquitous, few saw the internet coming, and no one could have predicted its impact. Now we wonder, how did we ever live without it? And can anything ever replace it? The internet has its roots in pure fiction. In 1898, just as telephones were entering American households, writer Mark Twain penned a sci-fi short story titled From the London Times in 1904. In it, he predicted a future in which all the world's phone lines were connected and the daily doings of the globe could be seen and shared by everyone across oceans. Using what Twain called a telectroscope, the story's protagonist called up different corners of the world to look at life, study strange sights, and communicate with others. But it wasn't exactly Twain's best work, and the story was largely forgotten. Then in August 1962, computer scientist J.C.R. Licklider proposed a similar idea of computers that could talk to one another. As director of the U.S. Department of Defense's Advanced Research Projects Agency, or ARPA. Licklider's memos about an intergalactic computer network explain much of how today's internet now functions, including cloud computing. 7 years later, the first message was sent from one computer to another over ARPANET. The communication from UCLA to Stanford was meant to say login, but only the LO made it through before the system crashed. Still, the internet was born that day in 1969. Things sped up from there. In 1971, programmer Ray Tomlinson sent the first email. He also introduced the @sign. Different networks were tested throughout the decade at research centers in the US, UK, and Norway. And on January 1st, 1983, ARPANET was officially migrated to TCP/IP, or Internet Protocol. A year later, this was the standard for all military computer technology. In 1991, English computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web, an information management system accessible to anyone with a connection. In only 40 years, the internet developed from a system that could barely send 2 letters into a network that could return millions of search results containing billions of words in just seconds. In 1994, a Pizza Hut pizza was the first thing ever purchased on the net, and we've never looked back. As computers shrink from our desks to our pockets and wrists, and as the internet connects not only to our families, but our devices, our houses, our cars, and our everything else, all while connection speeds ramp up exponentially, the question now becomes, what could possibly be next?
So that's the history of the internet, and so where it started. And there was another aspect to it, which another big chapter to the internet, which was the World Wide Web. So the internet was just a connection of computers. And one of the things that we should all know is that the internet is actually not one network. The internet
there is no modern world without the internet.
There we go. So the internet is not just one network. It's actually a network of networks. And that is the reason why when the internet goes down in one part of the world or one city in a country, it may not affect anything else outside because it's so decentralized. You can cut off a branch of the internet, whereas the rest will still work. Okay, that comes with its disadvantage. That's the advantage, but there are also disadvantages, which means there is no one person or one group or one government or one company that can control the entire internet, because it is so decentralized. They do not have control over parts of it, and that has its advantages as well as disadvantages, and we can get to that. Talk about that. That's an entirely new, completely new lecture on it. But anyway, so let's look at the internet users and the worldwide penetration, and then see where we have gone with this, and where does cloud computing come in. So the numbers are increasing. Basically, if you look at these numbers over here, they're basically increasing. But as the diffusion has taken place, as the diffusion of the internet has taken place over the years, it is increasing at a decreasing rate. So that is something to understand, and that's understandable because more and more people already have it. So it's increasing at a decreasing rate. In the initial time, it just went up almost vertically because so many people were adopting the internet. So the number of users worldwide has grown up, and the penetration is 54.6%. Some people say that this is one of those technologies that the penetration has gone up so much in such a short period of time, and it has gone up in all aspects of society, all parts of society, in developed countries as well as underdeveloped countries and developing countries. But in all aspects, it has been one of those technologies that has caught on very, very, very quickly. So if we look at the actual internet growth, we have the read-only web, which was the early internet. Okay, and we can divide this whole time into read-only web, the read-write web, and the social web as we know it right now. And so read-only web consisted of these the static websites, which were one-way communication. You put up the information on the web and people accessed it and downloaded that information. And then came the read-write web, where people started contributing to the content of the web. So there were people contributing. And then came the social web, which was the generation of applications that people are using to share videos, to connect to people, get news, and also sometimes generate news. So all this is the social web that has come about. So with that, if you look at the social web, we can look at some of the things that started with the YouTube being launched in 2006 to all the way up to some of the things that don't exist anymore. Something like the Google Glass and others. There have been missteps, but that's how innovation takes place. Okay, so going into the internet and me. So if you can take a step back, I'm not going to ask you this question. We don't have time for that. Which internet or web application changed your life? You could definitely remember if you go back in the previous 5 years, go back 5 years and think, which application changed my life? Which one do I use the most right now? And which application is most important to you? Okay, so changed your life means it could be, it could be an application, it could be a device. The day you got your phone, your latest mobile device or your iPad, did it change your life? Did it change the way you work? Did it change the way you communicate? And which application do you use the most? Is it WhatsApp? Is it something else that you use the most? Which application is most important to you? And the only way to find out is to look at how many hours you spend on the different applications. Every phone has a way to do that. They can show you what your usage is. That's one way to do it. The other one is turn off your phone for a few hours and see which one you're missing the most. And then you'll know which one is most important to you. So the global growth of the internet devices, I won't get into each one of them, but if you look at the bottom part, this was the PC market and the growth of PCs, and then smartphones, tablets, Internet of Things. So if you look at it, the PC market, the sales of PCs has been more or less stagnant. It's going up, but very, very slowly. But there was a big growth in the smartphone and tablet market, which changed the entire way we look at things and how data is processed, how we can reach people, how they can reach us. And then comes this whole area, which is booming now, which is the Internet of Things. Your refrigerator is connected to the internet. You can open your garage door with your phone. I was in India and I could change the thermostat in my home and turn on the AC when I was in India about a month ago. Sabat was there. And I could do that because it's all connected to this Internet of Things. So wherever I'm there globally, I can, as long as I have an internet connection, I can connect and make changes. So what's cloud computing? So cloud computing is a style of computing which is scalable, elastic, IT-enabled capabilities. These are provided to external customers using internet technologies. So basically, they could be what's called a public cloud, which uses cloud computing technology to support customers that are external to a provider's organization. So rather than having all our data, all our systems housed inside my organization, I could actually give it to someone else who can then manage it. And it will be transparent in the sense that for a user, for a third party, for my customer, they will know where my hardware, my environment is, where my information system is. Is it in my home or is it somewhere else? Is it in my organization, which is my home organization, or is it someone else? Okay, a good example was that, and there are all these what are called connections between organizations. For example, there was a time when Netflix went down. It was the night before Christmas, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And I remember that my son told me that, maybe there was something wrong with the network at home and things like that. So I checked it, nothing happened inside. I rebooted all my computers, rebooted the network, internet was working fine. The next day, So Netflix was not working. It didn't work for 48 hours. But next day, Netflix, there was an apology that came out that said, we are very sorry that you could not access Netflix. But it didn't come from Netflix. It came from Amazon Web Services, because Netflix had their entire library stored on AWS. And it was AWS that went down, not Netflix. So the apology came from AWS, which was the cloud provider for Netflix. So if you look at the cloud computing concept, it provides what's called on-demand service. That means whenever you want it, you can get the service you want. That also helps us to scale up. When we have too many users. Just before Christmas, I'm a retail shop. I'm selling items on the web. People are buying gifts. So I want to increase my my capabilities, my IT capabilities, so that to handle multiple users or more users than I normally do, maybe 50% more, I can scale up very easily. It's easy to scale down. It's easy for me to manage my resources well. And then if something breaks, I can move to, it provides me with some kind of redundancy in place as well. And cloud computing encompasses another aspect, what's called utility computing. Okay, utility computing is like the utilities, like very similar to our electricity, our water bills. The more I use it, I pay for my usage. Okay, that's called utility computing, right? So I have this infrastructure available to you as a cloud provider. I give it to you, and as a user, you can use it, but you pay for what you use. Okay. So it provides broad network access, computing resources, and it can happen in virtualized servers, which are stored in server farms and server virtualization. I won't get into that, but the idea is that there are data centers, huge data centers, which house multiple servers, and they are the ones that's where your data is being stored. And there are some very large ones. If you go to AWS, you will see that there are data centers in India. I have, in my neighborhood, we have about close to 30 data centers, which is part of the Northern Virginia cluster for AWS. So when we have these server farms, what are the things to consider over this? One is that security. Is my data stored? Will it be secure? It's not always the hackers that I'm concerned about. What if somebody walks in there and takes the entire computer and goes away and walks away, the server? They have all the data they need. It doesn't have to be something that, some foreign agent who's hacking in through some fancy computer and using some fancy code to do that. It might be physically there. Another thing about data centers, and this is a physical aspect, is why is cooling important? Because cooling is important because these large server farms generate a lot of heat, because there are multiple computers, and computers generate heat when they have thousands of computers in the same room. And why does people use scooters inside a data center? Because they're huge, and they have these small bicycle kind of two-wheeler scooters, which they use to go from one lane to the other. So they are almost like a supermarket lanes, okay, aisles, as you call them. And just imagine, instead of products in the aisles, there are computers, okay, stacked one on top of the other. They're called racks, and they're stacked on racks. So let's look at the different types of clouds that are available. There's a public cloud. It's shared, easily accessible, multi-user. Many people are using that public cloud. So if I want, I can open an account on AWS or Google Cloud or Azure. And this private cloud, which is a company's own private cloud, where they own the infrastructure there. But it's on the cloud, but it's not on their premises, or sometimes it is partly on their premises, partly in the public. So that's called a hybrid cloud. And there are vertical clouds, which are based on the verticals of the organization, okay, for different businesses within the organization. So this diagram kind of shows the different types of clouds. Organizations can have their own private clouds. They can have, there's an Amazon public cloud here, but sometimes organization A can have part of it, they can store part of their data. They think there's sensitive data that they cannot provide, that don't want to provide on the public cloud. And whereas there's public cloud over here, they put some of the data in the Google public cloud, some on the private cloud, and then this is called what's called a hybrid cloud. So there are some applications that are stored in these two different platforms. But the thing to remember is, as a user, it does not matter to me. As a user means if I'm checking my email, it doesn't matter to me where it is. Okay, I don't even know where it is. But there are organizations that are taking care of this at the back end. So those are some of the things that you have to be aware of. So cloud computing services, there are different ways to look at it, the different infrastructures possible, or models possible, that's the right word for it. One is this infrastructure as a service, where cloud computing providers provide remote accessible networks and storage capacity, servers as well. And they supply these resources on demand from their large resource pools, which are located in their data centers. So that's the entire infrastructure. The other one is a platform as a service, which is customers rent the service, operating systems, storage, database, software development methodologies, such as Java, .NET, PHP. And this model allows the customer to run both existing applications and to develop and test new applications on that platform. And finally, the model that's kind of the most common one, the one that we're familiar with and the one that we hear about, is the SaaS model, which is the software as a service model. And the cloud computing vendors here provide software that is specific to their customers' requirements. And the SaaS is the most widely utilized service model, as we know, and it provides a broad range of software applications. And this is the SaaS applications reside in the cloud instead of the servers within the organization or on my hard drive. Okay, so it's in the cloud where everything is stored. And that's the most common one, software as a service. So if you want to compare these different types, we have, if you look at the on-premise software, you see everything is stored by the customer and managed by the customer. But as we move to the right, you'll see more and more is managed by the vendor. The vendor here is like Google, Amazon, the cloud provider. So we have infrastructure as a service, where we have a customer manages a few things, vendor manages the servers, virtualization, storage, networking, and platform as a service, the vendor manages more, and software as a service, the vendor manages everything. You as a customer, you can just provide the materials and the applications to be stored there. And here are some of the examples of the different companies at the bottom. Okay, so cloud computing benefits, it has a positive impact on employees. It can save money. It can improve organizational flexibility, competitiveness, and if you don't have any, and it can make things quicker. It can provide you with agility to move into that part. There's some concerns, reliability. The example I gave you, Amazon Web Services. What if it breaks down? Who is responsible for it? If it goes down, and if I'm dependent on it. Privacy. Is my data, stored? Is there private information? How is it handled? Security, the regulatory and legal environment, and the criminal use of cloud computing, and that can be used for criminal purposes as well. Okay, that's all I have. Questions that I could answer at this time, or do you want to, Sabahat, do you want to,
Yeah.
I will stop sharing.
Great.
You want to take questions now at the end? I'm going to stay for the next 15 minutes.
All right, great.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session. It was really informative. We do have some questions which have come in. We could either take them now or wait for Megan to finish her presentation, so that if anyone has any questions regarding careers, etc., we can take them all in at one time, right? So
let's take the questions about
Sure.
the presentation right now, so that we can, and you can time it so we don't
no,
want to take
no. That's fine. All right, great. Before I go into the very heavy loaded questions, I'm going to ask you one which one of the attendees has asked, and they want to know which web application changed your life and your way of thinking. They really they want to know that bit.
I think the web application that changed my life, I think, was messaging, the first messaging part. If you think about it, that changed because till that point, we were completely dependent on email, right? And once the messaging came on, and it took some time to catch on in the US, it was much more widely accepted in the developing countries compared to the US. But once the messaging came on, the idea of sending an entire email to someone and waiting for a response, of course, we still wait for a response for messages as well. When I send a message to my son, he doesn't see it for the next 24 hours. I don't hear it. But that's, he's ignoring me. But that was one of the things. But it's a good exercise. If you do one thing, just turn off your phone. Of course, you tell all your near and dear ones that, I'm not available. I'm off the grid for the next 2 hours. Turn off your phone, keep it in a place, and don't fall asleep. Stay awake and see how you feel. Okay? And literally, it's a good exercise. You'll realize how much we're dependent on it. One thing that you'll find is, you look at my hands, you'll find that your hands, you'll wonder what to do with your hands. Because you're always reaching for your phone in your pockets, in a jacket pocket. Give it a try. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. My next question is, what are the options that GWSP provides for students who are wishing to pursue a master's in cloud computing? Okay.
So Megan is going to get into more details, but we have the Master of Science in Information Systems Technology. It's a STEM program. We have been doing this for 53 years now. Sorry, I got my numbers wrong. 43 years now. Okay. So what we have is that we have some core concepts in information systems that you have to do. They're very technical courses. And then you could specialize in either cloud computing, artificial intelligence, or technology management, depending on whether you want a more management-oriented, more technical degree. I have my own opinions about that, because for foreign students coming from international students, I shouldn't say foreign students, international students, I think technical degrees are better. And we have a certificate in cloud computing housed inside the MS degree. So if you take the right courses, 4 courses in cloud computing, when you graduate, you get a Master of Science in Information Systems Technology, as well as a certificate in cloud computing. So that's how we have that in our program.
Great. Thank you so much. I have another question here from someone in the audience who wishes to know. Firstly, there are quite a few questions, and I'm going to sort of bundle them together about how safe is using AI. What are the security concerns when it comes to cloud computing? Would, let's say, computer processors be able to sort of host clouds in the future? What is, let's say, the future? Will it be possible to sort of integrate AI into cloud computing? So a lot of questions revolving around these topics, which are, of course, in the back of all our minds now, especially with the AI revolution coming in.
Right. So I think that the AI question, let me tackle that one first, and let me give you my opinion about it. And part of it is fact, is that the thing that has caught our attention in the last few months is generative AI, right? So ChatGPT, Bard from Google. And what's going to happen is that it's going to seep into all applications, that the generative AI part. But generative AI, from the cloud perspective, how do I make it work? It requires huge computing power and storage. The whole thing that is generating, it needs data. And that is stored on the cloud. Okay. And the thing that companies like OpenAI that came up with ChatGPT and Google Bard, what they're concerned about is that it's too expensive. They're giving it out for free, but that is to get attention. but it's extremely expensive in terms of the computational power it needs on the cloud and how much storage is needed. And the only way to do it is on the cloud, because you can easily scale and you can have large amounts, but it still costs money. Somebody has to pay for it, right? So the thing is that generative AI is actually driving up cloud computing. So if you look at, if some of you are more financial services oriented or financial like stocks and all that, look at some of the results from the last quarter for Google and Microsoft and all the cloud providers. They have said that because of the interest in generative AI, companies are now moving to the cloud because they want to, there's no way they can store that kind of data. They have to go to the cloud to do it. So that's what I see the future. Means cloud and AI are going to be intertwined. They are already intertwined. They're going to be like that. There's no way you can have that kind of processing power locally. But what Google is hoping, and I'll leave you with this thought, Google is hoping is that to reduce some of their costs, they're hoping that our phone devices, our mobile phone devices will have some additional computing power, both in the hardware and software. So it will decentralize, it takes some of the emphasis away from clouds to our local phones to make ChatGPT kind of applications easier to develop. So lots of things I've said, but some of them are my opinion, some of them are actually facts. You can decide which one is which.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your insights. I'm sure that does help students get a lot of answers to the questions that all of us have actually. Right. My next question is from Jitendra, who wants to inquire about the assistant opportunities for fall 2023 MSCS students at the George Washington University. Could we speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think what Jitendra is, did I say that right? But yes, is referring to is basically assistantship opportunities. We do have within the School of Business for the MS in Information Systems Technology program, not the MS in CS, because that's a different school within the university. That's a School of Engineering with the School of Business. And our courses are technical as well, but we do have assistantship opportunities within the department because we have what are called teaching assistants. So students who come to our program, master students, not in the first semester, but from the second semester onwards, many of them work for us in the department. They go into and help faculty with their classes, with grading, sometimes lecturing and assisting, mostly undergraduate students and sometimes graduate students. Yes, we do have that.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, a couple of questions very quickly around, some students have these questions as to they're from a different branch and they want to sort of pursue cloud computing, so whether that would be possible. So we have a question from Gertrude who wants to know that she is a biomedical engineering student and whether she can branch out into cloud computing.
Oh, absolutely. That's not a problem at all. Yes, it does require some background work. If it's at the master's level, you will have to take initial courses to make that transition easier. You might have already had some programming classes. If not, we'll have a class in Python right at the beginning of the program to give you some programming knowledge. And then it'll build on that. You'll have a course in database, you'll have a course in security, you'll have a course in web application development, and they'll all build, those are the core courses that they're all beginning, that every MS student should have. Because when you go into a company, they're not just going to hire you. The first job may be cloud computing, but later on, you might be managing 20 people, but doing other things, right? Security, everything together. So when it comes to, you will have to take those courses and then have that concentration, as I said, certificate in cloud computing. But it's very common for people to change careers, programs, emphasis, and move into cloud computing. We have biomedical is one thing. With your biomedical engineering, you should not have any problems. We have had individuals who have changed careers from accounting, which is understandable. They're still in the business school, English majors,
Oh,
and
okay.
physicians, doctors, who don't want to practice. They don't want to practice at all. They just want to become .com millionaires. They look at it and they say, ChatGPT, that's the future. I want to do that.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
thank you. So it's not a problem at all.
Right. We had a similar question from someone who's offering information security as a major. Someone else who's doing a major in data science, but now wants to get into the field of cybersecurity and forensics. I'm sure your answer holds true for
Holds true for all of them.
all of these cases.
Should not be a problem.
We have another question from someone who wants to know what are the future opportunities of a business analyst, since they already work on things that involve Python, SQL, AI, ML, working in an MNC or in the current corporate environment as such?
I think that's a very bright future to it. I think I'll break that, although you've not asked the question that way, but I'll maybe put that in context of being a business analyst in the US.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to work in the US after you finish your degree, and it could be anywhere with us or with someone else. And what I would say is that, yes, all your experience counts. But the thing is that the first job that you look for in the US, it's kind of difficult to get a business analyst job. And I'll tell you why. Because they're looking for skills. And they want skills that are proven within the US. It's not written down anywhere. It's an unwritten kind of understanding. So most places where they will hire the people who get jobs right away after finishing our MS program, and most of them do, are the ones who have the skills. So if I'm a company hiring, they'll say, what can you do for me today? Can you write code in Python? Can you create a database? Can you do cloud computing? Do you know how to push data into the cloud using AWS? Can you do that for me tomorrow? If you cannot, you say that, well, I have to learn about it. I did it 3 years ago. That's not going to help. Okay, because technology changes. So that is one thing to know. It's very skills driven. So the more technical skills you get for the first job, and once you have that, maybe 1 or 2 years in that job, and then you can slide over to business analysis, you can slide over to project management and things like that. But the first job is very skills driven. Okay, Samantha, I think I probably should not take any more questions. You might want Megan to take.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Dasgupta. I would now invite Megan to please take us through her presentation about the offerings at GWSP. And I can see quite a few of you still have questions. We will try and take these up at the end.
I'm here. I'll be here.
But, Megan, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Megan Vanson. I'm an Associate Director of Recruitment and Admissions here at the GW School of Business. And I am pleased to share with you a little bit more about the programs that we offer, the unique features of GWSP, and a little bit more about how to actually apply. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen that has the presentation on it. Great.
Yes, Megan, we can
We're
see
all
it.
good? Okay, just want to confirm. All right, okay. So we are, of course, named after the first president of the United States here at George Washington University, whom you can see right on the right-hand side. George Washington actually advocated for the establishment of a national university in the nation's capital and set aside a certain amount of funds for that. GW was created in 1821, and it was actually founded by an act of Congress. And we are one of just a handful of universities in the United States that were founded by such an act of Congress. So we are now well on our way into our 3rd century. So a little bit about where we're situated. We are located, of course, right in the heart of Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. If you've been to DC before or you've looked up pictures online, I'm sure you've seen the Washington Monument, the National Mall, the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, and then right down here is the Foggy Bottom area, which is where the university is located. The School of Business is located just around in here. So we are very much located at the center of it all, close to all of the US government institutions, international organizations such as the IMF and the World Bank are located just down the street from us. And of course, we have more and more private companies in the area as well. The big four accounting firms, all the major consulting firms, et cetera, all have a presence in the DC area. So definitely go do the virtual tour on our website and check out where we are. All right, a little bit about our rankings. So our Master of Science in International Business program has actually been ranked #1 in the United States, #2 worldwide by the Financial Times. Our finance program has been ranked #2 in the United States. And we are also very pleased that our global MBA is ranked #1 for the percentage of women in an MBA program. Our finance program, again, very highly ranked by US News and World Report, as well as our business analytics program. And in addition to our diversity of gender, we also have been ranked #2 in just diversity in general in the United States by Bloomberg Businessweek. And of course, The Economist has ranked us #2 for faculty quality, which you were able to see a wonderful example of with Dr. Dasgupta's presentation. So we really do have the best of the best in terms of faculty. Right, so for our graduate programs, we have 2 full-time MBA formats. We have a global MBA and an accelerated MBA. And for both of our MBAs, there is a STEM designated track and a non-STEM designated track. And to give an explanation of what STEM or science, tech, engineering, math means in this context, if a program is designated as STEM, that means that when you graduate, you can work in the United States for up to 3 years after finishing. Whereas with a non-STEM program, it would be 1 year of work after finishing. But so we do have two tracks for that. And just something to note for our global and accelerated MBA, in order to do one of our MBA programs, you do need to have a few years of post-baccalaureate work experience. So you can also see all of the different master's degrees that we offer. In addition, of course, to our MS in Information Systems Technology. We have everything from sport management to business analytics. And the programs that have a little asterisk next to them are STEM designated. A couple of our programs, accountancy and interdisciplinary business studies, actually do have a non-STEM track and a STEM track. So for example, for accountancy, we have our General Master of Accountancy, which is not STEM designated. And then we have our Master of Accountancy with a focus in accounting analytics, which is STEM. But those are all the programs that we offer here. And additionally, we have over 20 graduate certificates. And our graduate certificates are only 12 credits each. Our masters are generally 30 to 36 credits. All right, just some highlights about what differentiates GW School of Business, what makes us really special. Of course, our world-class faculty, as you've seen, and our innovative curriculum. We place a lot of emphasis in our programs on technology and analytics, on making sure that students have the most up-to-date skills, whether that be in our MSIST program, or, for example, in our Master of Science in Marketing program, we make sure that students do coursework in marketing analytics, for example. So we want to make sure that students have the most cutting edge skills. There's also a focus on international business and on an international perspective in everything that we teach. We are a very diverse university. We have international students from all over the world, and we're, of course, located in a very international city. And last but not least, experiential learning. There's a lot of emphasis on case-based projects in our programs. And we also have a global and experiential learning, global and experiential education office here just for the School of Business that offers various programs throughout the United States and overseas. We have a dedicated career center that's solely for our School of Business students. We have a variety of clubs, events, organizations taking place throughout the year. We have our George Talks Business events, for example, which are streamed live on YouTube. And those are live interviews with various industry and thought leaders once a month. We have networking events, clubs, such as our consulting club. And of course, we have an extensive and very involved alumni network throughout the world, throughout the United States. And our alumni are very involved in coming back to campus, speaking to current students, providing career, job search advice, and of course, networking with our current students as well. Our programs are very flexible and very customizable. As I mentioned, we have over 20 graduate certificates, which are 12 credits each. So if you are doing a degree program where you get at least 12 elective credits, you can use those credits to do a graduate certificate. And we have graduate certificates in anything from tourism to accountancy. We have well over 200 electives here at the GW School of Business. So a lot of different courses that you can take advantage of if you have elective credits in your degree. You can also bring up to 6 credits outside of the School of Business. So if there is a course in the School of Engineering or School of International Affairs that you feel like fits with your degree, you can definitely petition to have that included. We offer joint and dual degrees. With our MBA, there's opportunity to do a dual degree, for example, with MBA, Master of Human Resource Management, or MBA and MS in Business Analytics. And we do also offer joint degrees, for example, doing an MBA and a Master of Arts in one of the programs at the International Affairs School. As I mentioned, we have short-term global and domestic study away programs. You can do a 3-credit study abroad or study in the US program through our Global and Experiential Education Office. So we've had programs in the US in Austin, Texas. Students went to Austin to look at that city's rise as really a capital of startups in the United States. And we also have global programs such as Business and the State in London, which is offered every summer. Also the opportunity to do a long-term semester-long study abroad or exchange depending on your degree. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we have our own career center here at the School of Business. Our Fowler Career Center we are very proud of, and it only serves School of Business students. So there are career counselors there who are ready to meet with our students from the moment they arrive on campus. They can assist with resume writing, interviewing skills, helping you to map out your job search, think of places to work or career tracks to follow that you might not have thought of. They can also assist with finding an internship, and they endeavor to open as many employer doors on your behalf as possible. So they have extensive connections with companies, organizations, as well as with alumni who they frequently call upon to provide advice and connections for our current students. And this is just a sampling of organizations where students have landed after graduating. I'm sure you recognize a lot of the names on here. As I mentioned before, we have more and more major US companies opening offices in the DC area, Amazon is located just across the river in Northern Virginia. Capital One is also in Northern Virginia. We also have the big four accounting firms, the big consulting firms all have a presence here. And of course, we're fortunate to have the main international organizations here in DC, such as the World Bank, the IMF, Inter-American Development Bank, et cetera. So a lot of opportunity, and obviously we have a lot of alumni in these places, and a lot of connections there already. Okay, so yes, we do have alumni located throughout the world and throughout the United States. So no matter what city you land in after graduation, you'll be able to connect with GW alum in that city. And our alumni network is very active as well. As I mentioned, we have George Talks business events every month where a respected industry thought leader or alum is interviewed. Just this past winter, one of our George Talks business events was with the Chief Diversity Officer for KPMG. And our George Talks business events are usually done right here and filmed live in the School of Business. But in March, our event was actually held in London. And we had respected thought leaders interviewed in London, and that event was actually organized by the GW alumni group in London in the UK. So still remaining very active and engaged with current students and with the university. Great, so a little bit more about how to actually apply. So the standard application is just completing our online application form and then uploading a copy of your transcript, your resume, and your statement of purpose. And then you would need to enter in the name and the email address of someone who can write a letter of recommendation on your behalf. They would actually receive an automated email from us and then be able to upload the letter. So online app, transcript, resume, statement of purpose, recommender. For international applicants, we do have some additional requirements, which are here on the screen. An English language test score, for example. If you, of course, have a degree from the US, the UK, Anglophone Canada, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, some other countries, you would be exempt. But for the English language test score, we do require a TOEFL, an IELTS, a Duolingo, or also a Pearson test of English. And the scores that you see on the screen are the optimal scores. If you have between a 90 or a 99 on TOEFL, a 6 or a 6.5 in IELTS, or 110, 115 in Duolingo, you can, of course, still be admitted, but it would likely be admission with the condition that you take an English class during your first semester, a 3-credit English class. Also, if your transcript is from an institution that's not in the United States, you will need to provide a transcript evaluation. We accept transcript evaluations from any company that's a member of the National Association of Credential Evaluation Services. So you may have heard of WES, ECE, Spantran, IEE, Joseph Silney. Any of those are acceptable, but we will need that evaluation. It is fine to go ahead and submit your application before you have your English test score or your transcript evaluation. Your application would just be in a pending state until those things are received. And then once they're received, it would be rendered complete and it would go to review. There is a fee for the application, but that's not something that you would need to worry about because you were in attendance today. On the bottom right of the screen, you will see a code. You can use this code to submit your application without paying. When you come to the end of the application, you would just hit save and pay, then enter that you have, select that you have a waiver code, and then you would be able to enter this code. We would see that you have the code, and then we will then manually submit your application without needing the payment. So a little perk for today. And of course, funding your education, always a very important question from students. The tuition for most of our specialized master's programs, such as the MS in Information Systems Technology, ranges from about $59,000 to $70,000 US for the complete program. Our specialized masters are all mostly 30 credits to 36 credits long, with the exception of the Master of Science in Finance, which has 48 credits. That one's a little longer. And our global MBA is one flat rate of about $125,000 US for the full program. The global MBA is 53 credits. There are scholarships available. These are merit-based, and there's nothing separate that you need to do to be considered. When you apply, you're automatically considered for a scholarship if it's decided that you will be admitted. So if you are awarded scholarship funding on your letter of admission, it will clearly state that. And the amount of funding you're getting will be listed as a percentage. So for example, if you get admission to a program with a 20% merit-based scholarship, that means that each semester that you're registered for, 20% of the tuition costs would be covered by that fellowship. But again, nothing separate that you need to do, you're automatically considered. There are also some international student loan companies which specify in loans for international students that we recommend. Empower, Prodigy. There's another company that for students in Africa called 8B. So some opportunities for you there. These companies are very familiar with us in our programs. I also get a lot of questions about assistantships. Assistantships are always posted at the beginning of each semester, any open assistantships that you're welcome to apply for. But assistantships are not packaged as part of your admission. The only thing you'd be given at admission is the merit scholarship. And then when you arrive at campus, you would be able to apply to any open assistantship you're interested in. All right, so that's just sort of a brief overview. I hope that you found that interesting and informative and exciting. Our email address, general email address, is right there on the screen, business@gwu.edu. So feel free to reach out with any questions you have at any time. And I would also like to invite you to a special event that we're having on June 3rd, which is a Saturday. We will be having a virtual open house from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Standard Time. So we highly encourage you to come to that and learn more about GWSB and our programs. And I'll have a link for that in the chat in just a little bit. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. We do have a few questions, but in the meantime, I would just like to guide everyone's attention. I have put the waiver code in the chat window along with the website that you can visit if you want to know a little bit more about George Washington University and their programs, along with the link for today's session on YouTube. So I have we have a few questions. Of course, we have sort of, run out of time, but I'm going to take very few questions very shortly. Megan, this particular question is for you. Mm-hmm. One of the students wants, their question is that they have 5 backlogs in their first semester of Bachelor's of Computer Science with an overall CGPA of 7.5 and an hour score of 7 overall. So what are their options? What are their chances of, let's say, getting an admission for a Master's of Science in Computer Science? Or are there any other courses which they could sort of consider given their academic profile for GWSB?
Sure. So firstly, an IELTS score of 7 is very good. We would be very pleased to see that IELTS score. In terms of your grade average, so as I mentioned, we do require an international transcript evaluation if your transcript is not from the US. What we're looking for is at least a 3.0 GPA on the US scale. So an international transcript evaluation will equate your average for your degree from India, I believe, onto the US scale, and it will list what your overall average would be on our scale. If it's at least a 3.0, again, that's completely fine. If it's below a 3.0, it still is okay to apply. You can definitely still be considered for admission. We do a holistic review of the application. I would advise that in your statement of purpose, you maybe address your average and address the backlogs. Obviously sometimes there might be, a student had a health issue, et cetera, whatnot, why they weren't able to do as well as they wanted. So we would definitely advise that you address that. Yes, so we have, in terms of computer science, in the School of Business, the closest thing that we would have to that would be the Master of Science in Information Systems and Technology. We do also offer a Master of Science in Business Analytics, which is very popular as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Megan.
Sure.
My next question, of course, is something that we always sort of get is, does GWSB accept students with a 3-year undergraduate degree from India who are applying?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we are familiar with 3-year Indian bachelor's degrees. We're very aware of that. Again, you would need to do the international transcript evaluation. If your evaluation equates your 3-year Indian degree to a US bachelor's degree, then that would be fine.
Great. I know we have absolutely run out of time. Last question for you, Megan, before I sort of let you. I know you've mentioned this in your presentation, but someone just wants to know, what are the application deadlines which are offered by GWSB?
Oh, yes, of course. So the next term that we are accepting applications for is fall 2023. That will start on August 24th, which is coming up soon. If you are obviously applying from overseas, you can still apply for fall, but the deadline will be June 1st. And it's very important that you do get your application in by June 1st because time is tight with visas, et cetera. For the majority of our programs, such as MSIST, we do also offer spring admissions. The MBA does not have spring admissions, Business Analytics does not have spring admissions, but most others do. Spring term starts in mid-January, and you'll be able to apply for the spring term starting in August. And then after spring 2024, of course, the next would be fall 2024.
Thank you. Thank you so much. One last question for today, before I let the two of you go, is what are some of the career options which are available for students who have, let's say, pursued a master's in information technology or cybersecurity at GWSB? What are some of the career options which are available for them out there? What are, let's see, the opportunities that GWSB sort of helps their students with? Can we speak a little bit about that?
Well, I can take that one. As Megan mentioned, we have a career center for the School of Business, and the career center helps our students find internships for jobs and things like that. So this career center, the good thing about the career center, one of the many good things of the career center, is that it's specialized in the School of Business students. Okay, it does not cater to all the other School of Engineering and things like that. It's very specialized in this area. The second thing is that the second part of the question was, now the most of our students, they find jobs in consulting firms in the information systems. Once they graduate, they find jobs in consulting firms. And these consulting firms have included, the Booz Allen Hamiltons, the McKinseys, and we have some students who are in some of the top consulting firms, and Bain and Company and others. And these are just from the information system side. But they also, many of them have gone to the recent ones have gone to Amazon, they've gone to Facebook, they've gone to, the real big IT firms, because most of these firms, the big advantage our students have is that it's a nice combination of the business side as well as the technical side. So yes, you have, that's a differentiation from computer science. So computer science, you'll have strong technical background, and the kind of jobs you're going to look for are very, very technical. That's what I would assume. But from our side, there are some students who get technical jobs, but they also understand business processes so well that they actually can get jobs in the, in technology, but with an understanding of the business processes. So we have a combination of management and technology in our degree. Just to give you an idea of the way you should think about as a student when you come into the MS and IS program. Yes, you will have a door open to all these big firms, because most of our alumni are go to all these large firms, and some go to the smaller technology firms as well. You should, when you come to the US and start your program, most students, and this is the path they take, they start in the fall or the spring, but after 2 semesters, they apply for internships in the summer or the winter break. Okay, so they work the summer as an intern in a company, and many of them get offers from that same company when they graduate after another semester, after another 2 semesters. So it's like the first 2 semesters, then the summer break. I'm talking about the fall admits, and then you take an internship in the fall, in the summer break, and you can earn some money at that time, help you ease some of the costs, the tuition costs, as well as living expenses. And then you take 2 more semesters, and then you can, most of them go back to those companies because there's a demand for IT workforce. And as Megan mentioned, because of our STEM designation, you have that almost 3 years of work authorization before you can, if you want to continue to stay, you'll need a work permit and things like that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Dasgupta. Thank you so much, Megan, for taking out time from your busy schedules, doing this wonderful masterclass today. I'm sure it has been very insightful for everyone who joined in. Thank you all to the lovely audience which is tuned in from not just the length and breadth of India, but from various different cities and countries across the world. Unfortunately, we have really overshot our time limit, so I will not be able to take in any more questions. However, as I mentioned, the waiver code is available in the chat window. We've also put down the link to connect with GWSB, along with the YouTube video link, and the open house event link with GWSB is going to be hosting for you shortly. So thank you all for joining us on this wonderful Wednesday from wherever that you've logged in from. And yes, we look forward to connecting with you again with another wonderful masterclass. Once again, thank you, Megan. Thank you, Dr. Dasgupta. I'll connect with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Megan.
Bye-bye.